We can go ahead. So, welcome once again. My name is Karima Stauch, and I'm the European URI coordinator and one of the hosts today. So, I'm really happy that we have a wonderful group of people who I know many of you already work on the environment or the earth for many years. For some of us, it's pretty new. All of that is fine. And we really want to build momentum and start off this series. And the goals of this are that we connect, we learn more about each other and the work we are all doing, and that we build our relationship. And then in time, we come up with hopefully also some joint actions, big or small, support each other, and possibly to some plans together. So that's the main purpose of our meeting here. And with that, I would hand it over to Deepak, and who is the core member, the president of this Earth Healing Committee, let's say, and then to Lauren, who is the URI Global Earth Restoration Coordinator. Over to you, Deepak.
Thank you. Happy New Year to everyone. 2026. Um, so I think that just to give you a little bit of background, URI is URI Europe, that is to say. And for maybe some people that may not be aware that URI operates at a global level, and then also at regional levels. And so the globe is sort of divided up into different regions. And we here are really the URI Europe region, and Europe in the biggest sense that you can imagine, okay? And within that, there are different countries that have their own URI umbrella bodies. So, with that in mind, I'm also the URI UK chair. But as a member of URI Europe, we last year identified a new chair, Danielle, and a new way of working together and building capacity is actually to look at some core areas that interweave interfaith and a particular issue. So in our case, it's the environment, it's the climate. And so it's actually how does the world of interfaith and actors within interfaith, broadly speaking, make an impact on the issue of interfaith, into the climate change and environment and nature. So as we remodeled ourselves, URI Europe, that is, we began to think of how we could build capacity within each one of these issues. And so rather than just thinking of URI Europe and our different corporations around Europe, we thought that we would expand this our work to obviously embrace all of the URI cooperation circles in Europe, which is I think about 70 of us, to also then invite other actors who are working in the environment arena, the climate arena. And in that way, if we can bring that kind of togetherness together, we'll have a deeper and a more meaningful impact. And so this is the first meeting on which we're sort of trying to debate with URI activists, but also invited guests, people who are who have an insight and actions in the environment and nature, climate change arena, and say, what do we need to do to make a greater impact together in the environment and climate change? I'm obviously, wrapping a lot of things up in one, those kind of things, but it's just to say that how do we all collectively work together and the environment and the climate change, how do we as faith or interfaith activists as well bring it to a higher level of consciousness what sort of things do we need to do to make that have happen? So this is the first meeting. We're now brainstorming into that. Obviously, we have some ideas, but this is very much a listening uh, and thinking together meeting. So I think I've sort of shared with you our thinking, our where we're going, um, and I'll pass on to Lauren to actually then connect to the global, I think.
Thank you, Deepak. If we have not yet had the pleasure of meeting, I am so happy to be with URI Europe and friends today. My name is Lauren, and I am joining you today from the San Francisco Bay Area in California. And I am really happy to have some members of the Barnet Multi-Faith Forum here because some of you were part of the Peace Building Through Earth Restoration course that was offered in 2024. You were in the 2024 class. So just great to have you here. And yes, as Deepak has said, I'm going to take just a few minutes now at a very high level to share some kind of the approach that Earth restoration is taking across the URI network and to give you some grassroots examples because, of course, that is URI. URI is all about what's happening at the grassroots. And and then maybe some invitations really for URI Europe to start to think about where are the places that some good things are already happening that together we could intensify. We could really create some impact and potency together. And where are the places where maybe things are a little inactive or sleepy, and we could do some good work to wake them up, right? So I am looking forward if you are not a cooperation circle or if you are not yet a URI member and you're here today as a partner or as a friend, I am also looking forward to hearing more in the future about the good work that you're doing so that we can look for points of collaboration. So I'm going to share a few slides here and introduce you to some of what we're trying to do. Across the URI network, we talk about being Earth communities. And the way we define that is by just emphasizing again, we are human and we are ecological. So in this course that I just referenced, this multi-month learning series, Peace Building Through Earth Restoration, we acknowledge that humans don't always behave very well. Humans aren't always getting along very well. And isn't it interesting and important to think about Earth restoration as one of the reasons why that conflict happens sometimes, but also one of the reasons that we could create peace. One of the ways that we could apply a medicine is actually through restoring Earth together and making sure that we are living with land and water and all beings in a really good way. So this is the approach that we're taking, that we're looking for ways to care for our Earth communities. And we're doing that by embracing our ancestral traditions, the indigenous wisdom and tribal knowledge that exist in different regions of the world, that we are not afraid of modern science. We embrace it. And we look for how our sacred texts and our religious traditions and spiritual practices support us. They give us the wherewithal, the teachings, the principles so that we can do this work together. On a theory of change level, and I can share these slides afterwards if people are interested, we really believe that it is through belonging and security and creativity that our actions come together to create the kinds of changes we need. We need to feel safe. There need to be systems in place that allow us to be innovative and creative and responsive. We need to belong. We need to feel connected to the places that we call home and the people who are in our communities who create that space. And we need to bear witness to the changes that we see happening around us and change the stories. If the story is broken, we need to mend the story. We need to create a new story. And we do that through acts of art and ceremony and coming together. So there's a whole theory behind how we do what we do. And these slides are just a way of describing some of that. But as we think about URI Europe today, I want us to hold three questions together. So how is your cooperation circle, or how are you as a member, as an individual member, embracing this idea of our religions and our ancestral wisdom and science do collaborate, do come together to restore what has been damaged, what has been harmed? And one example in the URI network where this is happening is with our friends at EcoPeace. Some of you may be already very familiar with this cooperation circle, but they are doing extraordinary work in coming together around the river. By centering the Jordan River, they are able to move through some of the conflicts that are so abundant in this part of the world, right? And they are teaching teachers, and they are providing nature-based education for young people, and they are even creating multi-faith toolkits to do some of the work that they do. So incredibly courageous, very creative things happening through EcoPeace. A second question: how is your CC using creative community organizing, ecological awareness? How are you combining these ideas to restore your community and to prevent violence? Actually, there's some really good examples from the Barnet Multi-Faith Forum, so maybe we'll call on them later. But here's an example from somewhere else in the URI network. This is in Sri Lanka. Now, for a number of years, there were Tamil farmers and there were Muslim farmers, and the two groups were not getting along very well because they were worried again about water, just like EcoPeace. There was this feeling that there was not enough water. And as a result, they were making the conflict about their maybe religious traditions or cultural practices. But in fact, when the community came together to acknowledge water, they created some canals that hadn't existed before. They created a systems change, right? And now there is not only a peaceful coexistence, but there is actually some cooperation and collaboration happening through interfaith encounters and appreciation of how their traditions are similar or different. And there's some really, really important work happening in Sri Lanka to reduce violence altogether. And a third question: how are you honoring Mother Earth as an essential source of living wisdom? How are you coming together in ceremony, in celebration, in ways that acknowledge the rights of nature so that your community can be doing good things for future generations, even in your actions today? Well, the example that I have from the network is in Brazil. And this is kind of an exciting one, I think, as URI Europe thinks about how you want to approach this, because we know that Brazil is a very big country. And there are a number of cooperation circles up and down and back and forth across Brazil who are cooperating together. So big, massive land, multiple CCs coming together around one particular area. And they are looking at the ways that water can be upheld as a human right, but also to give rights to the water. And actually, a couple of years ago, there's a section of the coast of Brazil where they granted the waves rights. And as a result of that legislation, a number of things cascaded from there. Things became possible that had not previously been possible. around building coalitions and movements, but also protection for cleaner water. And you'll see there in the green box some examples of other parts of the world, right, where the rights of nature have been upheld. And Europe is not alone. I mean, Spain is mentioned there, but there are other examples across the European region as well, where rights of nature have been granted and some really important things have become possible that were not previously that way. So as URI looks to 2030, which is a big year for all kinds of targets and metrics that we're trying to reach, you'll see here that we're trying to reach our goal of more earth restoration, more collective healing through a number of different means. We want to be cooperating with our partners, of course. We want to be working with youth and our Indigenous members. And we really want to be using the places where we can co-educate one another to do this work and hopefully actually create a movement that matters, where we're able to say, here is how many forests have been reforested because of the cooperation circles doing what they do. Here is how we have protected rights of nature in large amounts of planet Earth. The numbers that we decide on, the places where we want to have impact may change a bit depending on what region we are in. And so that's why I was so excited to hear about this call today, because I am very keen to know what feels most important in Europe. Where can Europe move the needle a bit? And if we need to go country by country, so be it. But I am excited for all of you who are here and ready to spend some time, maybe every week, but certainly every month in these URI Europe gatherings to talk about this. I'll
Thank
stop
you.
there for now. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Lauren. That was a lot of inspiring information from different regions, big questions to ponder. So I think these are good plans and questions to move us forward. Thank you. And thank you, Deepak, for holding us together. I'm looking at our agenda, and I would like to invite you to introduce yourselves in the chat with your name, your country, and your organization. So the name, the country, and organization, that everybody gets a feeling for who is here. And if you like, as Lauren was explaining, the Earth in some region now is considered to have rights. And we were also wondering what happens if the Earth sits around the table as somebody who has a word to say. So if you feel called next to your name, your country, and your organization, feel free to also put a sentence what the Earth would say through your mouth if she had the voice here in the chat. So our next item on the agenda is beautiful too. We have here Chris Martin, Dr. Chris Martin from Birmingham Council of Faith from the Footsteps program, Faith for a Low Carbon Future. And he has offered to give us a short presentation today of what they have been doing for a long time, I understand, with young people. And maybe in the future, one of the next webinars, they would also give us a more comprehensive introduction. So I turn it over to Dr. Chris. Wonderful you are with us.
Okay, so thank you very much. So can you see the slides okay?
Yes, very good.
Yep, okay. So so I'm Chris Martin from Footsteps in Birmingham. So what I'm going to talk about is maybe at the other end of the spectrum of the work that just been hearing about from all over the world, because I'll be talking very specifically about the work we do here in Birmingham, which is UK's second city. It's very diverse and culturally diverse. We've got 6 main faiths. We are Footsteps is part of Birmingham Council of Faith, but as I'll explain, we're very much an independent project within Birmingham Council of Faith. So very briefly, we were formed in 2015 just after the Paris Climate Agreement. And there was quite a sense of optimism at that time following the agreement. And a number of us organized, as you can see, a walk of witness through the centre of Birmingham, echoing some of the walks of witnesses that Faith were making in Paris to request that and demand that the negotiators made a challenging climate agreement, and a lot of energy. There was a lot of interest across the 6 main faith communities in Birmingham, and afterwards we decided that we wanted to build and try and capture that energy by forming Footsteps. And then because it was an interfaith initiative, the next logical step was to go to Birmingham Council of Faith and saying, well, can we be part of Birmingham Council of Faith? Which was a very good thing, because it's always meant that we don't have to keep demonstrating our interfaith credentials, because we're part of an interfaith, a very vibrant interfaith group in Birmingham. So we're quite a small volunteer-based group, although as we see later, we're starting to have interns and paying people to do work on our behalf on a commission basis. Our activities are, broadly speaking, faith-based climate activities. We have a summer interfaith walk. We have annual conferences, which we move around different places of worship in Birmingham. There's a certain pattern. We don't make them too heavy on presentation, but we have people sitting on mixed tables and talking about the issues that are raised in sort of new groups of people who don't normally know each other at all well, is part of the design of those conferences. Then we all along have deliberately tried to engage with younger people, and I'll come back to that. And part of our remit has always been to try to engage with politicians, and in particular with local councillors, local council, Birmingham City Council and the West Midlands Combined Authority, to try to influence and take a faith perspective into their decision making. More recently, we've been doing larger funded projects, which I'll come to in a minute. So here's just some of our faith-based activities: tree planting at International Family Women's Day, when the Young Christian Climate Network boat to Glasgow came through Birmingham. We stopped and we had a sort of an interfaith service outside the town hall. We had stands at Earth Day and other events in the city. Our walks have always been a feature and part of connecting Footsteps with the natural environment. We had a foraging walk, and we always try to have a purpose. And in 2019, we went to the Tyseley Energy Park, had a walk around the canals in the area, and then had a couple of sessions. So Footsteps is 10 years old this year. As I was mentioning, it was formed in 2015. Then for about 4 years, we had this mix of, quite a variety of interfaith activities, basically promoting low carbon future faith action. So some of these would have been the natural environment, but not all of them. We would see as part of our remit trying to help faith communities to reduce their carbon footprints. We've been doing energy audits on places of worship in Birmingham. So our remit is wider than the focus on the Mother Earth and the planet Earth. But then, of course, we had the COVID and the pandemic and the lockdown, and really for 2 years we couldn't meet face to face, which was uh, the lifeblood of Footsteps activities. Um, but we and many smaller groups like did not actually survive the lockdown in Birmingham. Um, and but we became very proficient at Zoom, and we took a lot of our activities online. Some were quite very successful, but we certainly learned quite a lot about how to run online events. Following the lockdown, all our activities prior to 2020 didn't actually suddenly all come back. And a lot of groups were saying that, the numbers of volunteers, and in fact, even the number of people going to attending worship at many places of worship, did not go back to pre-COVID lockdown levels. But as I said, we were then working on these um, larger projects. Um, with our campaigning hats, we had actually um, coordinated the faith communities and the faith leaders in Birmingham to support the young climate strikers and the school strikers, calling on the Birmingham City Council to declare a climate emergency, which they did in 2019. And for 18 months, Footsteps represented the faith communities on the task force, which had to produce an action plan for getting um, to net zero by 2031, which was the climate emergency declaration, which was passed unanimously by the whole council. And of course, it's not only in Birmingham, but in many places elsewhere, it's emerged that it's much easier to declare a climate emergency than actually, put it all into action. But we, as a sequel to that, we got our first major funded project. Well, it was major in the context of Footsteps' previous sort of budgets. And we had a sort of a data-led Faith for a Low Carbon Future project. Data-led because we know that the funding event was ultimately coming from Google, and they were particularly interested in how data would help inform steps towards a low carbon future. And we were one of about 10 community projects which got this funding in Birmingham. But as part of this, we did quite a lot of mapping of places of worship in Birmingham. We got it started for the first time to get involved in energy advice at community level. I should emphasize that all the Footsteps work is principally at community level, and focused on areas of Birmingham which were in fuel poverty, and very much part of the just transition. Trying in Birmingham to ensure that in moving to a low carbon future, disadvantaged communities and families weren't sort of left behind or made even further disadvantaged. That was followed by a Brum Energy project where Footsteps acted as the connector between the the community level energy advice, which was being offered by, well, on the whole, larger partners who had a number of their own energy advisors. So we were just trying to connect that project with the faith communities. But that was a good project because it helped us build and be seen as part of the network in Birmingham of community-based sort of environmental and energy saving coming. Then most recently, and we're about halfway through a 3-year project, which is a collaboration between Footsteps and Bahu Trust, which is one of the major mosques, a Sufi mosque in Birmingham, for which green and the environment is important in their faith, and then also Ashton Climate Solutions, and we've got, well, again by our standards, very substantial funding from Esme Fairbairn to build the capacity of Birmingham's faith communities to lead on practical eco-action projects. So it's a capacity building exercise, and we're about halfway through it, and we're learning a lot about how to support disadvantaged grassroots communities. And there's a lot more to providing that support than just sort of making grants and money available. And then part of the remit of that project is also to share nationally what we're learning through a program of national webinars, and also through developing a learning hub, which those latter activities are more the responsibility of Ashton Climate Solutions. So underlying all of this is Footsteps are sort of values-based and interfaith approach, and with an emphasis on inclusivity and social justice, sort of earth care, which is where the overlap with URI and caring for Mother Earth, but also a big emphasis on practical action, trying to do things, not just talk about them, and this emphasis on younger people. And we have gone down several wrong roads in trying to engage with younger people. And there's some very good work that's been done by Faith and Belief Forum and I've on what younger people are looking for, when they become part of the faith-based climate and environmental movement. And it's things like having agency, being listened to, not joining steering groups of organizations like Footsteps, and also very much gaining experience, which is employment relevant. For younger people today, career and job prospects loom very large. So this sort of approach has, over the 10 years, has always been there behind all of our actions. But it does mean our activities are really quite diverse. We're doing some doing an exercise at the moment involving geography students from University of Birmingham, to try to find what our focus should be for the next 10 years. And
Chris, I was going to say we got about 20 minutes left.
Yep. Okay. Right. That's me.
I'm just wondering if that's okay, because hey, we want to congratulate you, and well, obviously I'm in Coventry and we know each other, so let's continue meeting and imagine the way we go forward. I think we have a lot on the agenda, but I think it's much more important, possibly, Karima, that we listen to the participants who are here today and then find a way forward in the next 20 minutes or so, if that's okay with you.
It sounds very good. Thank you to Chris, and that sounds excellent, Deepak.
Yeah, only because I think it's important we listen to one another and we plan a way forward. So, with that in mind, I'm wondering whether anybody would like to begin with introducing themselves and possibly sharing a way forward that makes sense to all of us. I'm looking for somebody. I'm not finding anybody. Oh, they were.
I'll
Thank
speak.
you.
Hello,
I'm
can you
really
hear me?
grateful. Yes, we
Um,
can.
my name's Charlotte, and I'm chair of the Oxford Council of Faiths and a member of the Oxford Three Faiths Encounters team, which is actually affiliated now with URI. So thank you so much for that. And I'm also founder of the Interfaith Walk in Oxford and a charity that looks at faith-inspired action. Called Hope for Creation. So I feel really honored to be part of this call. It's absolutely the center of my passion and work. And I've also done a doctorate on ecology. So I'm just contextualizing it so that I really enjoyed what Chris was saying and the importance of local trust amongst faiths to take action on climate. What I would really love to do from this group is to find out what individuals and community organizations, NGO, faith-based organizations, FBOs, have found most successful and most impactful in actually looking at how we change our behavior towards climate and nature, and also reduce our carbon footprint, either individually or collectively. And what level of understanding do these groups have in that action taken in one place of the world has an impact on individuals living on the front line of climate in other parts of the world? So I think there's a huge wealth of knowledge, and Lauren's questions were very bold. So I'm supposed from the big questions and to the faith-based community action that Chris says, there's probably an enormous amount of knowledge, and I'd love to know what people have found in their body of work most successful, most attractive, and most impactful.
Thank you very much. More hands. We got William.
I mean, I'll happily share sort of where I am in my head on this, but it's not particularly inspiring, constructive, or helpful, I don't think. I find our relationship with the earth and climate just so, I think we all find it so overwhelmingly challenging that it's sort of crushing and bewildering. And we have to ask ourselves where we sort of have any agency or any ability to affect things at all. And I think broadly it falls into action that happens via governments and via politics, central and national and local. Things we can do via businesses as customers or shareholders or entrepreneurs. There's obviously our personal behavior and carbon footprint. And then there's what we can do as faith groups. And I think the faith groups could do much more than they have to date because of the scale of their influence and how they can inspire people and call on deep motivation and the the carbon footprint and environmental performance of faith-based buildings and institutions and investments. I think the reason I think that faith is probably a very powerful lever to operate on our concerns about climate is because the reason we've got into the pickle we're in is because of spiritual problems. It's really corporate greed and behavior like war and a sort of wrong mentality, which is sort of apex primate talk as opposed to thinking of ourselves as a cooperative forest of people and institutions. And I think any practice that gives us some meaningful sense of traction or effectiveness, any change we can try to do is just really good for our sort of mental health and calmness. But I don't think that small individual behaviors and changes are the problem or the solution. We have to do what we can. So I come to this forum, as part of a Bath Interfaith group, which is a new circle of cooperation. We're checking out URI. We're not particularly active or effective ourselves in anything really, let alone reversing the problems that are leading to climate change, but here to listen and to do what we can.
Thank you. Just like to welcome Castor. Castor, thank you for joining us. We know that you've got a situation, and being here is we're really grateful. Huh? We're
Yeah,
just
yeah,
having
thank you.
we just have sort of taking the temperature from people a little bit. I think I'm welcoming two more people to say a few words, and bearing in mind time, there's a few things that we want to share from the organizing group, as it were, which would then take us into the 5 o'clock here in the UK and 6 o'clock in Central European time. So, anybody else would like to volunteer and share some thoughts? I'd welcome very much.
If you wouldn't mind me jumping in, Deepak.
Please do. Amir, is it?
Right, no, it's Dimitar.
Okay,
What,
wonderful.
what did I jump in front of somebody? Sorry.
I think
Right.
you can
Anyway,
go, and
I
there is Tarana who would like to speak, and maybe she can do so after Dimitar.
right. So, thank you so much, everybody. First of all, it's a pleasure to see quite some familiar faces and to get to know so many other unfamiliar but so inspiring people. I want to comment on very briefly, of course, because of time constraints. I want to comment on what Lauren said in the very beginning because I found her message very inspiring. And most people know that Lauren and I have been working together for an event recently in the past. I feel like we are stuck between discussing the global and the local, the global approach, as in what's the problem at stakes in the world, and it is a certain, let's see, level of environmental degradation, environmental issue, climate change, call it as you will, and also local action. So sometimes what people are not realizing is that they're trying to solve a global issue with local means. And I am not really necessarily saying that this is all wrong. And I'll go back to what William just said, that sometimes we cannot really solve the big issue by doing simple steps, right? Because one single step doesn't do a lot, yes, but many a little makes a mickle, as the Scottish say, and this is a lovely proverb I really like to use. What I'm suggesting here, and this comes from my background as a political economist focused on environmental awareness and the economy and environment nexus, I believe that in order to understand and address the issue with a better approach, we need to try to first tackle the roots of it. And of course, coming from a political economist, the main issue is, as people have so far mentioned briefly, big businesses and everything. And for me personally, economic growth for the sake of growth. Of course, these are very big things that cannot be discussed only within couples of minutes, but I believe that campaigns for awareness raising and knowledge-based campaigns, this would be ideal to begin with when we try to address a global issue with local means, or rather with small steps towards great success. Not to hold any more because of time constraints. Back to you, Deepak.
Thank you. And Dimitri, I would say that then when we have 5 minutes to come back, one of the ideas that I'm sure you'll enjoy is actually the ownership of what we're organizing is as a collective. And so we'll come back to that in terms of how we're going to express that and facilitate that. So you can take your passion and your drive and express that in a different way that makes a difference. So we'll come back to that in maybe 5, 10 minutes time. But thank you for your contribution. Yeah. Who was the next
Tarana?
one?
It's me.
Yeah.
Yes, hi
Please.
everybody. I hope I'm audible.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So I'm here based in Brussels. I'm an independent CC member. So I wouldn't take too much time because I think all of us are on the same page. However, I do echo with what Dimitar said about tackling the root cause and kind of looking at the scratching the surface, because primarily what's been happening is that there's sort of a distance between the global and the local, in the sense that there's some sort of a divide, in the sense of the global north and the global south in terms of these dialogues and conversations in and around climate change. So, what I have been proposing to the URI team largely over the past few months is to kind of take the first step forward and kind of hosting a short workshop or a webinar on climate change and looking at human mobility in the sense of the linkage between migration and climate change, whether it's from a policy perspective, a humanitarian perspective, ethical perspective, and the interfaith perspective. So it's just an idea, nothing set in stone yet. But happy to, of course, hear perspectives from all of you, but to kind of look at it from different stakeholders, because I come from Asia, but now based in Europe. So kind of having different perspectives from these regions would be interesting, and other regions as well. So that
Okay.
just briefly, I wanted to share that. Yeah, happy
Thank
to
you.
learn more.
We're gonna let two more people, I think it was Carolyn, if I pronounce it correctly, and Vieko, I think. Was that it?
Yes.
And then we'll do a bit of wrap up. Yes.
It's Bibas Niergi and my wife's Carolyn. We live in Godalming, a town in Surrey, in the UK. I have written down on the chat the various groups who are parts of members, etc. There are interfaith groups, and also we belong to a local climate club. And the Climate Club is a charitable organization. We are all volunteers, and of course there are trustees and members and supporters. We meet twice a month, and we have a shared supper and then discuss climate issues, starting from how we can improve our homes for insulation, or how we can eat more sensibly so that we can reduce our, for example, consumption of meat, which creates a lot of environmental problems. And there are also voluntary service to inspect people's homes for leakage of heat through their windows, etc. And creating a group of people who are concerned about the climate and what we can do locally. There's also a very knowledgeable trustee who is a chemical engineer, and he gives talks on climate issues to the schools and colleges about how things have become worse through the industrialization, and then if we carry on this way without taking action, what will happen to the climate? The temperature would rise up to 2 degrees or even higher. So we need to take action and think globally on how we can contribute to the world situation. From the faith side point of view, what unites us is love for everybody. Even if we are different religions, different faith, the one single thing is love for everybody. Why we are giving our time to discussing this is because we love all the people. And that's what the faith groups bring together, and the action can be more effective if we concentrate on that.
Thank you. Thank you
I
very much.
wouldn't mind speaking, Deepak, if there's any time.
Sure. Vieko and then Zabano will end that one, and then
Okay.
we'll move on.
I will try to be short. Vieko from Sarajevo. I'm a member of URI Europe CC secretary, and also I'm from Balkan is a Soul Bridge URI CC in Sarajevo in Balkans.
And I just want to stress that there are so many little things that we can do ourselves and with our groups that can actually provide the situation in our communities and save the planet and the earth. In our recent talks, I was mentioning how much asphalt and concrete we have in our cities, and that's the reason we have flash floods in all around Europe now. It's not only because of climate change, but because of too much of destruction of the nature. And I am strongly fighting, even in my neighborhood, against putting asphalt everywhere. For example, in my roof, I am living in the attic. I have grass on my roof. I also am involved in one project with special needs people, and we are teaching them how to use waste of different kind to do some useful things. Like we are making from different things that we find in the garbage. We make postcards. Also, we use plastic to do many different things, and then we also organize the sales of that, and
Keiko,
also
can
we yes.
can I think that what you're doing is fantastic, and I think that the ideas and presentations that you have can go into another meeting that we're going to have. I'm going to suggest to you.
Okay.
So we can hold, if that's okay, and then we'll go to Zabano quickly,
Yeah,
and then we need
I
to bring
just
it
want
to a
to show
close.
you something that we are also teaching them what to do. For example, you can grow onion in a plastic case, and that's the way how to use it and not to throw, and also to use it usefully. Also, you can have a garden in your home and make a very good drink out of it as well. That's
Okay.
for now. That's what I want to just give you
Thank you,
suggestions.
Keiko. Zabano next.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Deepak, and thank you everybody who's spoken. It's been very interesting for me. I'm the founder of the Asher Centre in the Forest of Dean in Gloucestershire in Britain. My husband and I, Richard, we bought an estate which was a dumping ground for rank Xerox, and we created an interfaith intercultural centre where ecology is at the heart of what we do. We were the main provider for Erasmus Plus for young people from throughout Europe and India and Africa and all over the place. I mean, you can look at our website, ASHA, ASHA Center. And to answer Charlotte, she was very interesting, the question she asked. I think Mother Nature would say to us, we've got to get our act together. And we can do it locally, we can do it in our countries, we can do it internationally. But I think the time is right for the faith communities to come together to do it, because I think they are unstoppable. Because people who have faith have passion, and therefore they can really do things together. And I think the time has come where we've got to work right across the board throughout Europe, throughout the world. And URI does that. When Bishop Swing, I met him and he stayed with us when we had a home in London. And his vision is extraordinary. It's an extraordinary vision, and we're all part of it. And I really would welcome anybody who wants to come to the Asher Centre. This year, with Deepak, we organized that leaders of the faith community spend time together, and it had a huge impact. Then we had young people at the Asher Centre from all the faith groups come together and discuss issues that they were concerned about. And it's fascinating what they're interested in. They wanted to take up the issue of climate change. They wanted to take up the issue of food scarcity. And they wanted to take up the issue of violence against women and girls. And they're working together across faiths. And I think that's really important. And I think we can do that certainly on a European level.
Okay.
Thank you for giving me some time. Thank you.
No problem, Zaban. I know that we got, if we had more time, we could expand. And so let me go into what we are suggesting we do as a group, okay? Because we've got 5 minutes left. Is first Castor, myself, and Karima and others are saying that the knowledge and experience is with yourselves is far greater than what we have ourselves, the three of us. And what we need to do is share that. And so what we're trying to suggest to you is that for the we're hoping that we have these meetings on a monthly basis. And so we would suggest that if anybody wishes, and here I'm looking at Dimitri as a starter, as it were, and anyone else, okay, yeah, it's just one that plugged in my mind. If you have a particular strand that you would like, Vieko, if you have a strand of actually what can you do in your home that makes a difference as a strand, then we have 1 month's meeting to then just focus on that. Yeah, so rather than, lots and lots of good news, and let's have people from our group who are going to lead, the next February's online meeting and concentrate on a particular strand. If we do that, we'll all learn and we're all gifting each other knowledge and experience. So I would suggest to you all, please, Dimitri, would you like to have one of these strands? Would you like to do a 1 month's main
Right.
presentation and then facilitate a conversation?
Thank you. Thank you, Deepak, for that suggestion. Just a minor correction. It's Dimitar, not Dimitri.
My apologies.
No problem at all. No problem at all. Just letting you know. Also, yes, of course, I'd gladly jump in. And I even have a suggestion for the topic of that. This very much correlates, half a minute I need, very much correlates to what I wanted to talk about earlier today. This is the root cause of the issue. So instead of jumping into solutions and what we have to do in order to solve something, let's look into what caused
Okay.
this thing that we need to solve, and so on and so forth. But of course, we
Okay.
can talk about this.
Okay, so we're going to follow up with you to maybe look at February. Vieko, would you like to do one on what you can do practically at home, as it were?
Yes, I can collect some of the concrete examples
Sure,
of
March.
what works and what can be done in the community, and to be example for maybe others.
Okay, so that's March. Anybody else, please?
Maybe Karan.
Yes, I
Sorry.
can take the ones in April, no problem.
Aha, now we're going for it.
Super.
Next.
Deepak, I'm always available. And as Karima just pointed out, we had on the 11th of the 11th, which is Armistice Day, of course, but the Day of Peace and all, etc. We had a special Hive team meeting, and Karima was also there. And actually, we pointed out what was actually already happening. And I see this meeting as actually a bit of a follow-up from that special meeting we had on the 11th of the 11th, because Karima said at the time, we would really like to organize a webinar. But I said, well, we need to get this special meeting out so that everybody knows what Hive is actually doing. So I'm more than happy to, chat with you about. So that was on the 11th of the 11th. There is a recording of that. I'll send it to you.
Okay, Morgana, I'm now getting late.
Yeah, okay. You know where I am?
No, we got you as down as the fourth one.
Okay.
Anybody else? No? Okay. Please don't hesitate to come forward, okay? Because we're all going to learn from each other and make things happen. My last thing to yourselves is that the United Nations Mother Earth Day is the 22nd of April. And it would be something that if we can facilitate and make things happen in each one of our centers or whatever, that'd be a wonderful way of expressing our togetherness. And within the UK, URI United Kingdom is willing to give £100 to any cooperation circle in particular, but that can include yourselves who may not be part of a cooperation circle, for any activity that you do in that week. Okay, so the United Nations Day is obviously 22nd of April, but if you do something in that week, URI UK is willing to give £100 towards that activity. Obviously, there's all kinds of things. But with
Great.
that,
And
I'm
I
going to
see,
bring this.
Deepak, that there is some more suggestions in the chat from Lauren. Perhaps Elizabeth could present on restoring Earth across borders, or Barnet Multi-Faith Forum on community collaboration.
I'm so happy. So we're looking like 6 months of nice webinars organized by ourselves as a collective, taking it forward. And as we build our capacity and our knowledge with one another, I'm sure that this potential of making things happen is going to be
Yeah,
far greater.
Charlotte is also interested in doing something. So we will follow up with you, and feel free to contact us so that we can arrange that.
Anyone who
Karima,
knows me, I like to
Dinesh wanted to do something as
Okay.
well, so he can be also put on the list.
Lovely.
Thank you. Okay, anyone who knows me knows that I like to keep to time. I'm a bit out, but thank you very much. Happy New Year to you all once again, and see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you for sharing so
Bye.
well.
Bye.
Bye.
Nice to meet
Bye.
you. Thanks a lot.
Nice meeting
Bye.
you.
Casta, if you can stay on, Karima, that'd be great. And Loren. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well done. Okay. Just a quick one. Just
I
a
will
quick
stop
one.
the recording, right?
I don't mind either